But Patrick Dubois did the first DevOps days in Ghent, Belgium, back in 2009. He has been a super key and important part of getting DevOps off the ground. We're proud to have him as a friend here in Austin. I'll tell a quick story about how I met him. So I went to a Velocity conference out in San Francisco, and it was Pecco and I, and we were there, and the rental car company was like, "We're out of cars. Here, have a minivan." And we're like, "Okay, fine." And so, in an attempt to escape the horrid hotel food that they have there, we're like, "Okay, well, let's go out and get some food." And we're like, "We have a minivan," so we just kind of walked to the lobby, and we're like, "Hey, burrito run. Who wants to go?" And a couple people wandered up and were like, "I want food." We're like, "All right, come on."
I love burritos.
And we drive to, your standard Silicon Valley, weird little restaurant in an industrial office park sort of thing, right? And this is right after kind of DevOps started to be a thing, and so everybody's always talking about it. And so, we're sitting there eating, and people are like, "Well, what is this DevOps thing?" And or you may have prompted that somehow. And so, I sit there, I'm like, "Well, I think DevOps is blah, 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 blah," right? And he's like, "Oh, well, when I coined the term, I kind of thought whatever." And I was like, "Oh, shit." Like, I just got burned. Patrick's a great guy, and he's come out here to Austin. I don't know how many DevOps days has you been?
3 times now.
3 times. And he's a great guy, and we wanted to get some words for him. It's the 10th anniversary of that DevOps Days in Ghent this year. So DevOps Days is almost 10 years old right now, and so we thought we'd have him. So we thought we'd have him come out here, reflect on what's going on, what he sees in the future, and all that good sort of thing. So with that, we hand it over to Patrick Dubois.
Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. So I think yesterday I tweeted, there's 2 questions you can't ask me. What do you think about Kubernetes? And what's the future of DevOps? So please don't ask me that. Okay, right. So like Ernest says, this is kind of a reflection. It's not like the reflection about over 10 years. Like I moved on as well over the years, so it's probably part of my story, my learnings that I'll mix in and see how that goes from there. But obviously there's a relation to Dev and Ops doing that together. So the first part is a little bit like, we like DevOps was the collaboration between Dev and Ops. I don't have to explain that, but like this part of the DevOps pipeline got like so important in the whole thing. So the pipeline drew like all the attention somehow. So even though we're like nice people on the beach and doing stuff, like it's the pipeline that draws the attention. And even though like it's like putting water in the sea, but it's the pipeline that's the most important. And it has been strange to see that this has been getting so much focus. Like, obviously it's part of the delivery, but that tech pipeline was kind of like something I didn't really foresee to have drawn all the attention there. Obviously, we wanted to focus more on the cultural side and the collaboration side. I think the message got through, but once in a while, look, I stopped looking at the hashtag DevOps on Twitter because it makes me sick. People using it, but occasionally I'll look and then, there's some part of the culture, and then it's just like slap it on whatever technology you have, like we call it DevOps. And part of that, I think, is that even though, we had the word CAMS, like culture, automation, measurement, and sharing, the automation has been like a double-edged sword in the whole thing. So if you look back at things like ITIL, I met some of the early folks and read the books, and they were all about like, okay, good intentions, good like practices, and kind of make that. And then somehow ITIL get related to the control tools, like the help desk, the ticketing system, like making it rigid, making it controlled. It might have been a manifestation of the zeitgeist from that time, but like part of the popularity was having a technology change being brought in the company. The same has actually happened with Agile. Like Agile was like all about like working together, fast feedback and so on, but it was TDD that got the attention of the tech people, kind of like making the tests. And so it seems like any of the changes or the movements or whatever you want to call it, there's this schizophrenic relation between like cultural change and the technology as like a Trojan horse that's, you know, that helps spreading the message, but in the end it starts like overtaking it. So it's kind of a, you know, double-edged sword. The other thing I kind of learned, which, you know, I'm not that type of guy, but the bitching going on between I use tool A and I use tool B and we're like against each other, like, no, you shouldn't be talking about DevOps anymore. It's SRE now. No, it's not containers, it's serverless. Like, I don't know, it feels like I have 3 kids and that's how they would think. Like, yeah, this is the flavor of du jour, and if you can't put things in perspective of, you know, where we came from, why this was useful, what's the use case, and this, that. And I thought like this was kind of going away, but, you know, serverless proved it again and again. This is happening. The old is new, and kind of, and sometimes it's almost like, I don't know, this is something inherent in the human, like the Neanderthaler trying to repress the wives, and I don't know, it's kind of, it's this macho behavior, like we're the best, we're like innovative, we're the new ones, and then without any learning from the past, and it just makes me sad to work on that. Like, no more testers, no more architects. Come on, this is just like childish stuff that we do. I think, me personally, you know, having done a lot of the stuff in the, you know, automation and the pipeline and so on, I do feel that, you know, in my own company, like security is like adding to that. So I do understand the trend of DevSecOps going there, but I also, just like the pipeline and the automation, want to say that it's, you know, people who know me, they would say like, just enough security, right? You don't make your house a blind house, you know, you have to live at it. There's things you will have to do, and it's not by buying all the tools and like making you like the super secure Ford, just enough. And obviously, you know, from a marketing perspective, people will try to like say, you know, we're going to help you, we're going to automate that stuff, and we're going to go through, but this kind of, you know, keep it in balance. That's, I guess, what I was trying to say. And so the first 5 years of DevOps, I was kind of like doing IT consultancy, integration work. So you know, over the years, I've taken the habit of doing multiple roles, like being a tester, a dev, an ops manager, you know, project manager, and that like really made me learn the different groups. Like, I came into a company and I was, you know, the dev guy, and they didn't trust me because, you know, I was just entered the company through the dev, while I've been doing ops for a long time, and this kind of feeling where whatever you enter, there's like, you're in the other group. Okay, obviously DevOps kind of made it a little bit easier, but I think what I've learned for the last 5 years, and I took that deliberate role, like, you know, I joined a startup, and I thought like, I had done these other roles, but I've never lived running a business. Like, okay, I thought like, I'm good. I know some DevOps, I can automate that, it's all good, and no, we're gonna have a great company, and let's go for that. So So part of what follows now is more like what I've learned of running the business and not kind of being the perspective of just being dev and ops there. So the first thing that I learned running my company is that we hired somebody from marketing, and this is typically the view people have on our marketing. They will promise you the moon, right? Like we can do anything with our tooling, and like the biggest company and so on. And it turns out they, as a group, they feel really disconnected from the other part of the company. They feel like nobody gets us, like we're doing good work, similar to how ops felt. Like, hey, we're doing this really great stuff. And I cannot stress it enough, like how important job they do. They reach out, they make sure your message is heard, and do all the stuff. And I want to give a special shout out to all the DevRel guys, because that's marketing, relationship, and making sure people get the feedback and make sure that your message is out there, and they're so important in the stuff. So, but you think like, okay, they're like very similar, like in a group, nobody like seems to understand, they have their own ways and go from there. But when that person said her pipeline on marketing up, I was kind of like, what? You have a pipeline? So I'll tell you how it goes. Like, you put something on the website, there's a tracker in there, they will see in their system, did you come by? They send you an email automatically if you came by. If you came again, they will see whatever page you visited. They can kind of target you. They follow it up by saying, you haven't been here for a week, so what happened? So they have this they kind of suck your attention inside the pipeline, just as your code would go inside the pipeline. And I found that fascinating, like how much she automated of the whole process, very similar to what we did on the automation pipeline. And then, so marketing got the attention. The next phase is, you got the attention, you kind of have to sell it to them. And the picture says stereotype, like the fancy cars with the big exhaust, and kind of like, hey, but hey, if they don't sell stuff, you don't get paid. Well, at least unless you have like funding or whatever, but that's how you make the money. And obviously they have to understand what you're doing, how to sell it, and the message they're kind of putting across has to kind of be in balance there. And it could be subtle things, like just by chatting to them, they had like build up a pricing model, and it says like, okay, we're gonna give you a discount when you have volumes. And part of our, our offering, because it's linearly scaling, there is no economies of scale there. It's linearly scaling because, in our case, the capacity needs to be there, and it's 10 capacity, it's 20 capacity, and 30 capacity. And, they would like easily put like, hey, just give them a discount. So, there's other ways of giving discounts for whatever we did, but so it's stuff we learned. They were super stressing us for feedback. We want to have a trial system. We want to have it in front of the customers as fast as we can, because then we can show it. We want to have a demo system. All the new features, can we show them to the customers? So they were trying to pull that in as well, like because in their sales funnel, getting somebody through, this is kind of the same model. And there, my surprise was when you start reading about sales, you will not believe me how many frameworks exist. So they're suffering from the same thing. Like everybody invented their own sales framework, like with their own name, and you have to pick it. And the next stage, it's going to be a new framework you want to go to. So sounded like really similar to that. And then my best friends, legal. You don't know how to appreciate it until you hit like a problem. And, doesn't that sound familiar with ops? Yeah. They put like a really good stress on our infrastructure, architecture. Like, you could loathe GDPR, but I think it actually like made us build like a better architecture to put things on. And obviously, you know, all the compliance system and so on, and also signing contracts, getting feedback. They automated all that stuff. Like, okay, send you a link, do your changes, and so on. So you know, respect for them. They might not always talk our language, but that's why sitting with them together is so important, because, you know, they will, you know, the default contracts sometimes make you think that you have to deliver Fort Knox or something. But, you know, if you start talking to them like, okay, but it's acceptable if you put it in, and kind of go from there to do that. You know, overall management, I learned that it is actually, part of it is just making sure there's no back pressure between all the pipelines. Just making sure they're all connected, like one is not overselling and then you don't have people to deliver, and kind of striking that balance. And also going outside, like watch the competitors, like do the navigation, like what's happening over there. And that's, and even with suppliers, like we would think like we're using increasingly more services, and you have to think of them as suppliers. So you have to create a relationship for people supplying tech to you and kind of talk to them as well. It's not that I'm like, this is not rocket science, but it's just like the understanding that every part is a similar problem. And then HR, you know, these are the people who make sure that your paycheck is there. Like, they're doing really important job. So if they do it also right, they will make sure that with your help, they hire the right people. Like with the interviews, the way they set it up, like the job advertising, there's this feedback from you and them, and kind of making sure you kind of make the nice, get the nice people you want. And again, that was another surprise for me on the automation side for them. I found out there's like websites where you can say like, okay, I put my job advertising, you can apply for a job, do a recording, there's automatically like a hangout scheduling, like they record it, they give the feedback from both sides, make the notes, you can rewatch it in your company, you know, automation is happening there too. I'm not talking about the Amazon automatically firing people based on their quota, but you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, putting things on LinkedIn, searching people, putting it out there. That's like almost like search engine optimization for a website, but this is for getting the people that you want to have, and it's like an important job if you are growing, because hiring talent is really hard, and they take like a good like chunk of work to make sure that this is happening to you. And then there's finance. If you're a young startup, you want to watch the cash flow. And these are the guys who will tell you like, you can't spend the money right now, but you know, I really want it, maybe later, you know, sell 2 more contracts and then we'll see what happens. And there are also the people who will warrant you from a real failure. Like, you can like buy services and go there, it's like, oh, we need this, we need that. But yeah, so they're like this kind of capping or stress factor that you have to take into account. Like whatever you spend, whatever you do, that is like, you know, the incomes match the outgoing money. And that's their super important role where, you know, as an idealist in tech, you would say, well, I need this, and this be cool, and this be cool, but you're not responsible, and you don't see the, you know, the money coming in, and that's part of where they connect you. And maybe the last one on the chain is like the customer service. It's not specifically ops, but you know, all the quirks your product has, they talk to the people, they give like awesome feedback. Obviously, they must be very good at communicating because you know, people want to be helped, they want to get like a good feeling. Like one thing that really worked for us is that We had somebody who started off as a designer, then later became a tester, and is now in customer service. But she often, like when there's new features, sees the whole cycle. So she's there when the feature is designed. She knows what to test because she was in the discussion of the feature, what it should have been, and then she gets the feedback in customer servers whether it's actually working for the people. So that was a really good learning, to have those different roles and have somebody shift between those different roles, just because it's less throwing over the wall, like I make a design and it's done. No, you will be there also to make sure for supporting the people. And I guess that brings me to if you think, somewhere a pipeline, but there's so many pipelines and kind of things that you need to have in order to make them run. They're in a way, if they all want to be if they all want to be performant, in some way they do some CAMs, and they're focus on that as well. And you'll probably need all of them to succeed. It's not like we build it, they will come. So, we all know that myth. And it also shows you that when you have the argument, am I dev and am I ops? But if you extend it, am I HR, am I sales, am I marketing? It's not about having one person to all the roles. It's being able to understand all the roles, to have empathy for all the different roles, and making them work together. And you have to think of that. All the other departments have actually been serverless for years, and they've done their job as well, so don't worry about that. So that was my kind of learnings over the inside. It seems trivial in a way, but it's kind of expand that to make the business. So that's my talk. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, great points. We frequently get, we talk about kind of the bigger picture of DevOps and collaboration, but it's very easy to still get siloed. And if it's not, we're the DevOps team, it's engineering is siloed, whatnot, and the ability to kind of really work well with all these other parts of the business who are facing the same sorts of challenges that we are is super important. So thanks for sharing that with us. So
maybe any questions?
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Questions.
You can catch me later if you want.
Ask the man.
Okay.
So how would you expect a DevOps team, should I use that phrase, to have visibility into those other elements, right? I mean, what do you expect the touch points might be so we can get better appreciation for what their roles are, so we can better understand what the requirements are?
So yeah, I think the visibility comes often from maybe you could do a weekly sharing where it's not just a demo of your team, but you show what's happening in the other departments, and hey, you did a good job at hiring, hey, our cash flow is low. So because people tend to think that there's these meetings don't mix, right? And I think that's one way you could expect the other to do it, but you can also start asking about it. Hey, how do we do our hiring here? Can I help somewhere? How do we do how are we doing on finances, and kind of what are we burning here compared to what we're delivering? Is there any internal measure you're using that's useful for us to kind of work against it? So it's not only passively getting the info, but you could reach out. I understand sometimes it's not given in companies because they kind of keep the silos away from each other. But one thing I learned is that you might build something, without bugs and get it to production and so on. But if you can't sell it, and it's something you need to be aware of. And for example, One thing I experienced personally is that we were like in the engineering team and getting a lot of stress, like, you know, we're only 3, 4 people having to like wield all that stuff. And then I realized the problem is not us. The problem is we might not have a market fit that it doesn't sell enough. And then you start asking like, but what feature do we need to build? And you go to sales and you start asking like, what do you think, like, what resonates with the people? And you start thinking about those experiments. I don't know if that's answered your question. Yeah? Sure.
So Patrick, I just wanted to follow up on kind of what you said. So as you guys are building stuff, you know, how do you connect with the business? You connect with the business through your customers. So it's empathy. It's understanding not necessarily what sales and marketing tell you. Always find a way to connect to what actually your customers are needing and doing. So it's just kind of follow up on Patrick's thing.
Yeah.
It's not a getting bombarded with metrics and tossing things over the wall. So the most relatable way is like, okay, we're working on this project. Who are the customers? What are they doing? Can we actually point to specific people and name them? They're going to use this feature or this product and this capability. So you as an engineer, you may think like, oh, I don't need to worry about it. There's other people. But you should worry about it. What you do impacts these people. It's not just the business. It's not just marketing. It's not just sales. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's inject empathy in your work, and you're going to see great results.
I just want to add to that, is that I learned that, I know this is what people always say, like, build something your customers like, yes? But if you have a business reality, you might have people who like your product, but building it is not economically feasible because they have to pay a high fee and they might not be willing to ask for it. They might like your product if they get it for free. Like, this is the sweet spot between it being able to sell something or for free or charge you and make sure you can live on that for your business. So it's a little bit different perspective than just saying build something people will like, because yes, if you, depending what like economically feasible situation you're in, they might not be willing to pay for it, even though they might like it. So it's a different perspective there. James?
Yeah, hey, yeah, Patrick, this kind of changes gears a little bit, but DevOps early days, we tried really, really, really hard to say culture, 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 right? And then now we've jacked that up. Now security is like DevSecOps, and like they're kind of coming to the party. Is there any hope that we don't cross the same problem with them as well? Do you have any recommendations on like what can we do different? Because we basically have a whole new group of people that are kind of coming into DevOps fresh. How do we somehow, is there any hope that we can somehow say it's not the tooling and the automation, but that it is the culture? Or
well, it's not that I don't have any hope, but it's I think at the moment, I don't know. It's something I think about, like we keep going the same treadmill over and over again and making that own mistake, in my opinion. And I don't know, it's it's probably...
I don't know what we could have done differently.
No. But it's almost like, the other day I called it on Twitter, I called it like tech gravity. Like when you talk about culture somehow, tech pulls you right back into the tech talk. I don't know what that could be like. Maybe when they make us feel less of a rock star or something, we kind of start thinking more about like, hey, I'd like to collaborate with you, be friendly with you, and less about like we're gonna sit in a corner. It might be our DNA that we've done for so many years, like, hey, the engineer somewhere in the corner, and the nerd somewhere in the corner, and like we'll do our stuff, and we're like people shy. But I don't know. It's I think there has been changes, or at least it has surfaced a lot more that people are willing to collaborate and being more friendly to each other on that level. But the gravity is so strong. But let's keep hope, like the eternal hope, like the Star Wars hope, like that will survive the stormtroopers. Okay.
Other questions?
Right.
Actually,
Thank you very much.
I have one.
Oh, sorry.
Since no one else does.
Go ahead, Kartik.
So, you know, the idea of people working together is really easy to implement in a startup setting, like where you can just go talk to the CEO and have a, you know, candid conversation about whatever, right? But what are some learnings or what are some ways to do that in like larger enterprise where, you know, you go talk to HR folks about practices and stuff like that?
When you say that, like the larger, you know, when you make the drawing and say the organization gets bigger, so there's more communication, so I need more time for the communication to spread out, and I need that. You'll get the pressure on. We need, you know, if you're not doing stuff, you know, it's not productive. And I think that's the tendency I try to change there, is that communication is part of being productive there. And that's the only way. If you get the time to communicate and it's part of your job, then I think it will change. And otherwise, it's just going to be your spare time and you're mixing it in kind of somehow. Unless there's a clear, you know, business pressure, this needs to go out, you know, like the war room we had, but kind of like that. You use that as the first step to like, hey, collaboration step to go there. So, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick.